Hi, everybody. We'll give it a minute to have everybody get logged in today. Appreciate you all being here. All right. Again, I appreciate everybody joining us today for our ArcPoint webinar for maximizing the value of an employee well-being program. Very timely this time of year. My name is Jamie Welch. I am the VP of Strategy here at ArcPoint. And like I said, I appreciate you guys coming to learn a little bit about EAP programs, maximizing if you already have one, or maybe getting to learn a little bit more on what an EAP program can do for you. Next slide. Just as a reminder on this, our webinar is accredited and will be valued at a 1 hour of continuing ed credit through HRCI and SHRM. And we will email those certificates for you by next Wednesday. So you're ready to go. We also appreciate feedback. So we will have a post-webinar survey. Again, this will come up at the end of the webinar, but if you want to copy that down or scan that with your phone right now so you're ready to go, you're welcome to do that at this point. All right. The next part of this, and my favorite part, is introducing our trainer today, which is Ryan West. Ryan is the founder and president of eQualified. It's a well-being focused training and consulting firm that leverages the powerful framework of emotional intelligence to transform the way people communicate and relate to others. Ryan is actually certified an EQI 2.0 Myers-Briggs practitioner, a certified forensic interviewer specializing in nonverbal communication, and holds a master's degree in organizational psychology. Having served as a counselor, clinical educator, workplace consultant for regional drug and alcohol treatment provider for over 10 years, Ryan is also a certified employee assistance professional. He's also president of the Employee Assistance Professionals Association chapter in Indiana and a DOT qualified substance abuse professional. Now, saying all that, he's also a great resource for ArcPoint. He helps our network of locations utilize him for his knowledge in the toxicology and employee well-being space. We are so proud to partner with him and on these corporate training events and help bring educational resources to our customers. And we are going right now to talk a little bit more about EAP, again, in this very important time of the year where it's probably used the most. So without further ado, I give you Ryan West.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Great introduction as always, and very, very pleased to continue my partnership with ArcPoint Labs and all of its owners. We've got a lot to cover and 57 minutes to do it in. So a few objectives for you. And by the end of this 60-minute webinar, you'll be able to do a few things. First, you'll be able to differentiate between a wellness program and a well-being program. These terms are used interchangeably, like they're the same thing. And we're entering the world of semantics, but I do like to differentiate between these terms. So we'll start there. We'll also compare and contrast price versus value. This is a very common discussion point when I'm talking about well-being programs, EAPs, with my clients. A lot of them focus on price. And so I just want to touch on this for just a moment before we get to and spend the most of our time on 7 practical ways that you can maximize the value of your EAP, of your well-being program today. Now, I'm going to be asking you some questions. So I want you to engage with each other. I want you to engage with me using the chat to make sure that your chat is working. I thought it best to start here, given that Halloween was just 3 days ago. So on a scale of 1 to 10, put your answer in the chat. How much Halloween candy have you eaten over the past 3 days? Now, here's the Likert scale. 1 is no candy. Self-control is your superpower. I'm a little bit jealous. 5 is a typical year. A little bit guilty for overindulging, but also some pride for not eating all of it. 10, it's all gone. The children are devastated. You're still feeling sick, but you remind yourself January 1st is around the corner. You'll start your diet at that point. Where are you guys at? We've got a lot of responses. Bob says a 10. Bob, that's not good. I've got a good EAP contact for you. Gene says 1, 2 pieces. Dareth, that's some self-control. Josh Becker's at a 10, Carrie's a 3. Sarah Mello, I like your response. 2 small pieces. So you want to minimize right? The behaviors that may not be so great. Two small pieces. My daughter, anytime my daughter who, my middle child, typical middle child, button pressure, very curious, pushes the boundaries. She kept coming out with this bag. She'd hand it to me each time. And it's like, it kept getting so heavy. I was like, Sweet Pea, how are you doing this? We haven't hit that many houses. She said, well, it keeps saying take two, but there's two buckets. So I took two from each. So she was changing the rules, which I see that some of you are also doing. 10, 5, great. Awesome. Thank you all. Stay to the chat. Yes or no? Does your business have a well-being program, a wellness program, or an employee assistance program? Robin says, I'm going to add a caveat. I'm a 1, but I want it to be a 10. Me too. I was a 1, Robin. I am a 1, but I want it to be a 10. Tasha says yes. If you see me looking left, I'm looking at the chat, everybody. Lyra says yes. Yes, Robin says. Bob, yes. Brianna, yes. Teresa, yes. Nice to see some familiar names on here. So most of you are saying yes. That's great that you're already familiar with an EAP. I provide workplace wellness. Awesome, Catherine. Good to see you on. Eli says no. Okay. So for those who aren't entirely sure what an EAP is, well-being program, employee assistance program, to me, they're synonymous. They mean the same thing. Well-being is focused more on the psychological. Wellness is more focused on the physiological, the body. So a well-being program is a type of employee assistance program, or EAP, which is an employer-sponsored program offered to its employees and often members of the employee's household. Collectively, we refer to employees and household members as participants for free. Some EAPs cost money, some are free as part of the insurance that's provided to the actual employer and the employees, but it's free to the participants. Yes, it's true, as we'll talk about in a little bit. EAPs evolved and were initially designed to help those struggling with alcoholism, but in 2023, that's just a part of what they do. EAPs more broadly are designed to address issues that negatively affect employee performance, whether that's alcoholism and substance abuse, mental illness, maybe it's childcare issues, elder care issues, transportation issues, legal issues, financial issues. Maybe a person's having educational issues. They're having a midlife crisis. They're thinking about going back to school and getting a degree or a master's degree, and they're not really sure what they want to do. You can access life coaching through the EAP. So any life issue that affects a person's ability to show up to work and do their job safely and effectively, an EAP could be a really great benefit for that particular individual. Well-being programs and wellness programs do differ, as I said a moment ago. Kind of think of Maslow's hierarchy. The body, safety, security is on the bottom. That's wellness. Wellness refers to the body, making sure that we're equipping our team members with the right tools to do their jobs safely and effectively. There's an ergonomic fit. There's not going to be a lot of repetitive strain injuries. They have adequate lighting. The temperature is good. And you think of dietary programs or nutritional programs, this falls under wellness. Wellness programs, wonderful. They're a component of well-being programs. What affects the body affects the mind and vice versa. But as we move higher up the ladder, we're getting now into well-being, which refers to psychological needs, belonging, esteem, self-actualization. Are we creating a culture at our workplace where people feel like they belong, they feel welcomed? There's a sense of community. You might hear the words like family being used. Do teams communicate effectively? Do team members communicate effectively? Is there a sense of mutual trust and respect between individuals within your company? Are they empowered to make their own decisions? Do they have a voice? Is leadership coming to the front line to the other staff members and saying, hey, we're going to implement a new strategy, a new product, a new service? What are your thoughts on this? And self-actualization. Are we giving our employees the support and the resources they need to be all that they can be, right? To achieve optimal performance and to reach the pinnacle of what they're capable of doing professionally and even personally. So when you hear well-being, I want you to think more mental health, psychological needs being met. EAPs today and well-being programs, they're the same. Wellness programs or wellness initiatives are often a part of EAPs, but they themselves are not EAPs. Why have a well-being program like Wellbeing Solutions by ArcPoint? There's a lot of research on this. I'm not going to bore you with too much data, but just a refresher for those of you who apparently know a lot about EAPs. We see improvements in performance, productivity, and employee engagement. That's why they exist. We also see reductions in absenteeism, presenteeism. Workplace accidents go down, compensation claims go down. What you're seeing here is a bar graph from the Workplace Outcome Suite. This is published every year. I look forward to reviewing this data and seeing how it changes. But what you're seeing here is the positive impact that a well-being program can have for your business and for your staff. So workplace presenteeism, absenteeism, distress on the left bar shows the percentages before EAP counseling. The right bar shows the percentages after EAP counseling. So a significant reduction in workplace presenteeism and absenteeism before and after EAP utilization, and also a decrease in workplace distress. We see reductions in healthcare costs associated with stress, depression, other mental health issues. EAPs are commonly used by leaders as a place to informally or formally refer employees when there's a performance issue, or the person says, hey, I need some help for depression or anxiety. Okay, go see the EAP. But EAP should also be utilized by an employer to help with early identification and detection of issues before they become serious and affect performance. An EAP should be used to help prevent the development of an issue. And in order to do that, you got to advertise and talk about it, which we're going to talk about. And I tell you, I'm also, yes, I'm president for the EPA Indiana, and I still consider myself very much a mental health clinician, even though I'm not licensed and I'm not practicing. I don't have an independent practice, but I still do coaching. I still see clients as a SAP, as a substance abuse professional. But I'm also very much involved with SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management. I just actually did a podcast today with a board member for SHRM here in Indianapolis. It went pretty well. I know that talent acquisition costs are through the roof in 2023, and I think they will be for some time. And different generations have different needs. Baby boomers, right now are looking more for financial, legal needs. With retirement on the horizon, that's where their focus might be. So they're going to access an EAP for legal financial issues. Generation X, myself, millennials, they're more interested in social connection. So any initiative or services or programs around that, they might be more interested in. But we definitely know that the Gen Zers, 1997 and 2000 and beyond, they're focused heavily on work-life balance. That's a huge key word right now. That not just Gen Zers are interested, I am too, but balance. And so employers are using EAP as a means to say, hey, let us help you with your work-life balance. Here's a free benefit that you can access, and here are all the services you can get. This is not all the services that are available through an EAP. This is what I consider to be the core. Structured counseling. Research should suggest that a little over 4 counseling sessions is needed for people to maximize or get the maximum benefit from that counseling service. So I want to say, hey, if you have 3 sessions, great. If you have 6 sessions with your EAP, fine. Just make sure that it's evidence-based, that it's an informed decision why you're selecting that. And it's not just based on some haphazard arbitrary number that somebody recommended. Why are you at 3 sessions? Why are you at 5? Why are you at 7? I know Wellbeing Solutions has 5 based on the evidence that we have, saying 5 is good. You should have work-life services, legal financial, mindfulness. We're going to talk about stress a lot today, stress balance in this post-pandemic world. Some people don't want to see a counselor. Some people want to go online in their own time in the evening when they have some bandwidth, sit down on a computer or on their phone, maybe complete a self-paced course that addresses depression and anxiety. Life coaching, another crucial component of an EAP in 2023 and beyond. You should have critical incident support as well. 9/11 showed us the devastating effects that traumatic events, natural disasters can have. Not that 9/11 was a natural disaster, but these traumatic events and also natural disasters like tornadoes, hurricanes can have on employee morale and thus employee performance. So critical incident support should be considered a vital component of an EAP in 2023 and beyond. We want to make sure that we're giving our employees multiple access points. I personally like a phone call. I love it. Email people, hey, can you talk real quick? A 5-minute phone call will spare us from 3 days of back and forth emails. Emails have a purpose, but let's pick up the phone, let's talk. Some people don't want that. They want to text. They want video chat. They want to be able to email. Great. You should have a phone app that allows this person to access the EAP and all the benefits it has 24/7, 365, holidays, weekends, evenings, etc. And ideally, free DOT, SAP referrals and evaluations. You have a truck driver, they fail your drug and alcohol policy. They can't drive a truck anymore until they see a qualified SAP like myself, and they complete whatever recommendation is made, treatment or education. And that can be costly. Some SAPs charge $300, some charge $600. It really does depend on that particular SAP, what's their price. There are other services, as I said, but these are what I consider to be the core. Now, talking about price, shifting to the second objective. When I work with clients and consult for them on their current EAP, or if they're shopping around, or if they don't have one, they focus heavily on price. What does it cost is one of their first questions. I've looked through the brochure, I've looked through the flyer. How much is this going to cost me? They focus very little on what they're actually getting and more so on what it's going to cost. Budget's important. I get it. We've got a budget. There's only so much we can pay. But I also want us to balance it a little bit by focusing on value. Warren Buffett is quoted as saying this, by the way, world-renowned and stock market investor and philanthropist, billionaire, very, very smart man, highly respected by me and by many others. I'll give it to you. EAPs, well-being programs, that industry has shifted over the last 5-10 years towards product parity. At least on the surface, buyers assume that we're comparing apples to apples, that all EAPs are created equal. That's not true, but stiff competition, vendor consolidation, mergers and acquisitions, it has stiffened the competition, and we are seeing more apples to apples comparison. If you have two EAPs that are identical, one is offering $3 per employee per month, the other is $1.50 per employee per month, which one are you going to choose? If they're exactly the same price, you're going to choose the one that's lowest in price, or excuse me, the exact same in service. You're going to choose the one that's lower in price. Why? Because that increases our perception of value. If it's the same service, whichever one's cheaper, we get more value from it. So what I want to do is kind of shift the conversation and talk about, okay, let's assume you have an EAP, you have a well-being program currently in place, or maybe you don't have one, you're interested, great, you're in the right place. But if you have an EAP and you don't really want to change the services, you just want to know, how can I extract as much value from the well-being program that I currently have? How can I do that without paying more money? That's what I want to talk about. Now, my wife and I have 3 children as well. My wife and our 3 children, we love to watch movies. We have a pseudo movie theater in the basement, and that's where we typically watch our weekend movies. But we also love to go to the movie theater. I use this analogy quite a bit. We go to the movie theater. Our kids love to get popcorn. We usually bring in water or get water and then get the $8 huge, large jug of popcorn, which is a complete ripoff. We all know if we've gone to Costco, we can get an entire box of like 100 bags of popcorn for $10. So to increase our perception of value, what do they offer to us? What does the movie theater offer? Unlimited refills, right? And you better believe I refill that thing as many times as I can so that I get as much value from the price that I invested. Refill it like 3 or 4 times. It's still a ripoff. We still don't need that much popcorn, but at least I stuck it to them. I got as much value as I could. So how can you get as much value from your current EAP by not investing anymore? How many more refills can you get, so to speak? Well, it starts with advertising services, guys. How many times have I done trainings on this or similar topics, and I ask HR or a leader, who's your EAP provider? And they have no idea. They have no idea, or they know who it is, but they don't know the services that are offered. They don't know what the utilization rates are, the data. They don't know where the flyers are posted. If leadership doesn't know, your team probably doesn't know. When I talk about advertising, yes, I'm talking about traditional old school marketing, posting flyers, event flyers, service flyers, putting up posters. But I'm also talking about you as a leader recognizing the influence that you have through advertising. You're seeing here is a picture of my wife and my children. This is when we lived in southwestern Pennsylvania. This is going back 3 years. This is before we moved to Indianapolis. It was the fall of 2020, I believe. And this is one of my fondest memories of them. Watching them take pictures and trying to pose was quite comical, actually. We tend to surround ourselves naturally with things that we love, such as family, such as friends. We naturally put ourselves in the presence of people that lift us up, that make us feel good, that make us feel comfortable. We do that, and we do the same thing in our work environments. We may not even be consciously aware of it, but we do. We put up things, we hang things, we put things on our desk, like this mug I got for Father's Day in 2020. Can barely read it, but my children made this for me. Our credentials, our college diploma. Maybe we like to golf. I love to golf, but I wouldn't be caught dead with a poster this size. People would assume I'm good, and I'm not a good golfer. I'm a 25 handicapper at best. We surround ourselves with things that we love. So how powerful would it be if you as a leader, along with your credentials, your golf poster, your plant, your mug, you had a poster of your well-being program in your office? What does that communicate to people walking in? That it's important to you. So it's not just advertising at surface value, posting things up somewhere where people can see it. It's recognizing that you as a leader are uniquely positioned to significantly influence a person's perceptions of value and importance. If you're putting it in your office, it's probably something that they should look into. If this is a cork board in your office or in the break room, this is not the message we want to communicate. We're communicating chaos. We've got art, silent art auction, martial arts, house for rent. I know this is just an image as an example, but if you got this on this little tiny card here, your well-being program and the contact, not communicating important at all. So we want to make sure that your cubicles, your offices, the break rooms are clean, they're uncluttered, and that you're posting your flyers accordingly. And you want to be mindful to ensure dynamic movement. If your EAP poster has been sitting in the same spot for 3 years, you run your finger along the top and you get like an inch worth of dust, that's not good. Contrary to popular belief, there is such thing as bad press, especially with EAPs. It's better they don't know about it than to create a bad impression that you now have to course correct and change. That can take more effort. Spreading awareness is easier than changing somebody's belief system. So what you need to do is take that down, dust it off, and move it. We naturally focus and notice things that are different in our environment. We're leveraging prediction error in psychology. Our subconscious is looking for things to be what we expect them to be. It's constantly looking to predict what's going to happen next, what we're likely to see, hear, smell, etc. And when what we experience deviates from our prediction, it's salient, it's important, it stands out. So if you have an orange flyer posted in your cubicle on the right side, and it has the text Wellbeing Program up top, change it to a purple colored paper that has workplace well-being, or it has a work-life balance at the top with different text. Change the location, change the color, change the text, change the font, change the size of the font to get them to focus on it. You should be changing your flyers routinely every single month. And your EAP should be giving you these flyers, or should have given you these flyers so that you can do so. Number 2, reiterate confidentiality. This is a big one. There's a lot of studies out there on the stigma of mental health and addiction. I don't know of any that are more prominent, that are more powerful, that have a larger sample size than this one here. This is from a landmark study in 2016 that sought to understand the prevalence of substance use and other mental health concerns among American attorneys. So we have a sample size of almost 13,000 attorneys across 19 states. This particular study identified 21% as problematic drinkers, which is 2 times higher than the national average. 61% reported anxiety, almost 50% depression, and 12% were having suicidal thoughts. What do you all think? You don't have to put your answer in the chat, but what do you all think is the #1 barrier to treatment, at least from the attorney's perspective? Many of them knew that they needed help. They knew what they were doing is bad. They know that their depression is treatable. Why aren't they getting help for themselves? The #1 reason: perceived lack of confidentiality, shame, and embarrassment. Over 50%, yeah, you got it, Tasha, 50% said, I don't want people to know that I'm getting help for my depression. I don't want people to know that I'm struggling with alcohol. Mental health and addiction are still very highly stigmatized conditions, less so than pre-COVID, but they're still highly stigmatized, and it keeps people from reaching out and getting help. So it's your job as a leader to not just advertise, increase awareness of the program, but also to make sure that they know when they do reach out, it's confidential. Yes, HR is going to see utilization data. They're going to know how many counseling sessions were had and how many website hits, how many people access life coaching, but they don't know who. That protected health information is protected. And more often than not, when word gets out that they access the EAP, it's the client themselves that told people, and then that person told somebody else and somebody else, etc. Let them know that it is confidential. Can't stress that enough. Number 3, leadership training. You've got to train your leaders on what the EAP is, how they themselves can benefit from it, not just as individuals, as participants, but also as leaders, and also train them on how to recognize signs of distress, of mental illness, of substance abuse or substance impairment, and how to effectively deal with it. Whether it's called manager assistance, manager assist, leadership hotline, whatever it's called as part of your EAP. These specific departments targeting leaders can help you with conflict resolution between employees, between departments. They can help you develop your management skills so that you can move up the corporate ladder. You can call them and say, hey, due to budget cuts, we're unfortunately eliminating annual bonuses this year, Christmas bonuses this year, which is apropos given the fact that it's November. I don't really know how I can deliver this in a way to maintain morale and just let them know that I do care about them. And some people are on the fence already about leaving, and I don't want to rock the boat too much more. Can you help me? Yeah, you have a master's level clinician that is trained to give you good advice on how to deliver very tough news. Maybe there's a layoff or a dismissal. That's some pretty rough news. Call the EAP. How to address low performance, low productivity. How to give constructive feedback so they don't retaliate, so it doesn't affect morale too much. Leaders should also be trained on how not to use the EAP. It's never to be used as a form of punishment. It should never be used as a means of gathering more information or evidence about somebody so that you can terminate them. And it's never a replacement for proper disciplinary action, proper supervision. Motivating individuals and teams. If you're having some conflict between different departments, maybe they're siloed and you just can't really seem to get them together, call the EAP, get some feedback, get some coaching advice. And of course, recognizing signs of troubled employees, which is a big one. So I want you all to go to the chat right now, and I want you to think about, in your experience or just conceptually, what are your thoughts? What would be some signs indicating an employee might need some help? Maybe the EAP would be a good place for them or a good referral for them, whether it's informal or maybe even if it's formal referral, if there's some performance issues. What are your thoughts? Please go to the chat. What might be some signs? Dareth, less engagement in conversations? Yeah. Withdrawing a lot of days myths. Shannon, absolutely. Kadea, excessive tardiness. Absolutely. Asking for a cash advance on payday. Yeah, Tracy, great. That's awesome. That could also be a sign of substance impairment. Attendance issues, Carrie, Tori, abnormal behaviors, stressed, mood swings, says Sarah, change in behavior, Diana, awesome. Tracy, I'm so glad you joined. That's awesome. Sudden dip in performance, you got it. I was just on with Tracy Justice. Anybody listening in that needs a good coach, reach out to the Be Bold coach, Tracy Justice. Eugene Pride, change in emotions, late attendance, employee looks very disheveled. Awesome, guys. Yeah, I don't disagree with anybody. All of these are correct. Now, does it mean the person has a problem? No. Does it mean that they might have a problem? Sure. And if nothing else, it warrants a conversation. Pull them aside, have a conversation, ask good questions, and listen to their response, what they say, and also the body language, the tone of their voice. All that stuff matters. Decreased job efficiency, anger outbursts, using inappropriate or graphic language, increased carelessness, mistakes, safety incidents, being disorganized, not keeping to deadlines. Yes, 100%. Make sure your leaders are trained. If they don't know the well-being program exists and they're not properly trained on how and when to use it, or what signs indicate somebody might need a referral to the EAP, you're not maximizing the value of that program. 4, use the services. All right, stay in the chat. True or false? You read customer reviews before purchasing a product or a service. Is this true for you or is this false for you? I already know what the research says, but I'm curious to see what you all say. True, true, true. Sarah says sometimes. Respect that. Old school. Well, how did we function? How did we purchase things before the internet, honestly? I mean, it takes me 6 months to shop for a pair of jeans now. I can't remember what it was like 20 years ago. True, true, true. Yeah, most people say true. There's a lot of studies that's been done on this as well. And what we do know is I can say confidently that over 90% of people look at customer reviews before buying a product or service online or brick and mortar. And over 90% are significantly influenced by those consumer testimonies, by those reviews. It's also interesting to note that a lot of consumers, they may not even know it, they're actually looking not just for the 5-star, they're looking for the critical reviews. They're looking for the 1, the 2, the 3 stars. And they're looking to see how the company responds to those. That's really important. Also interesting to note that there's significant research to suggest that 4.2 to 4.5 stars is the sweet spot. Consumers don't want a company to be perfect. They want them to be better than the competition. And 4.2 to 4.5 is where most people feel comfortable. They feel that they can relate to that particular business or that product, that service, etc. Yeah, consumer testimonies are a form of social proof. We're in a day and age where businesses can promote and tout their services all day long. And it might have an impact on certain people. But what's more powerful is consumer testimony. What they're really interested in is not so much the business saying how great their service is, their product is. It's what are consumers saying about that product or that service. That's what I'm really interested in. But they aren't that fake. No, they buy their stars and hide the negative. Yeah, that's true. Some companies can absolutely do that. They absolutely can do that, which is why I think many do trust that 4.2 to 4.5 range. That's the sweet spot. If it's all 5 stars, it can create some skeptics. I agree. But consumer testimony, especially if it's live, if it's recorded from an actual consumer, is more powerful than business promotion. So if you're a leader and only promoting it, you're only talking about it from on your pedestal here, that's not nearly as powerful than you stepping down and saying, hey, I use this too. I use the life coaching. I use the counseling. I use this. I use that. And it was really powerful. It was really helpful for me. That's far more powerful than you just talking about it as a leader. So step down, be a consumer. You're going to be far more likely to promote it and openly endorse it if you yourself have benefited from the actual program. Use the services. Number 5, communicate, and communicate often. Pandemic, no doubt, had a tremendous effect, negative effect, if you will, on mental health, not just in the US, but globally. The World Health Organization stated that the pandemic triggered a 25% increase in the prevalence of anxiety and depression worldwide across the globe due to a lot of reasons. We all had a fear of touch, contracting COVID, giving COVID to loved ones or those that were immune compromised or older. Changing information. What we learned yesterday was different today. We didn't really have a whole lot of control over that and maybe even our jobs. Companies were scaling back and laying off a lot of people. It happened to me for about a month. It was really, really scary. There's a sense of uncertainty. You don't know if you're going to get it. You don't know what the future holds. These 3 things, by the way, are universally accepted stressors. Changing information or lack of information, perceived lack of control, and an inability to predict the future. These are universal stressors for adults and also for kids. And we had isolation on top of it. So it's no wonder that we're all experiencing stress, which led to mental health and like anxiety and depression issues. Now, one of the many silver linings of the pandemic was the response of employers and recognizing the connection between mental health and performance. And so many employers stepped up and started to do something about it. They were before, but many more during and after the pandemic. So in 2020 and 2021, Willis Towers Watson studies showed that for 2/3 of employers, over 2/3, 68% say that communication of benefits and well-being programs is their most important benefit priority. Same was true for 2022. And the same is true for 2023. And this particular study was global. So this actually excluded the United States. This was other countries. 974 employers and over 35,000 employees responded to this particular study. 40% of businesses are planning to implement or redesign their EAP, their well-being program. 47% are currently involved or taking action around campaigns addressing stigma that involve mental health, have organization-wide mental health strategies. This is wonderful. More and more companies are doing that. We've got to communicate. We have this benefit. We got to communicate that well-being is important. We know that it affects your ability to be safe and effective at work. We want to help you. Communicating often is not just communicating, and of course often, is not just referencing frequency of communication. It's also referencing how we communicate. Yeah, at a minimum, you need to be talking about this quarterly. You need to be advertising it with hard copies of posters and flyers, but also talking about it, sharing it, promoting it. Maybe you just used it and you want to share it. Bi-weekly meetings, weekly team meetings, monthly safety meetings, quarterly meetings, certainly all staff retreats. It doesn't always have to be an agenda item, by the way. It doesn't always have to be included in what you're actually going to be deep diving into and talking about. Preface it, finish your statements with, hey, before we begin today's meeting, I just want to quickly talk and remind you all about the Wellbeing program we have through Wellbeing Solutions. It's completely free. It's a benefit to you and to household members, including those that are over 18. A variety of services can be offered, like counseling for stress, anxiety, depression, legal, financial, work-life, childcare issues, life coaching, XYZ, whatever services you offer. Again, I want to remind you, it's completely free and it's completely confidential. We see the utilization data, but we do not know who's accessing it. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. You can also reach out to the EAP with questions. Here's the phone number. Here's the website. All right, let's get to today's action item, guys. The more you promote it, the more likely they are going to be to utilize it. It also starts to reduce the stigma associated with the EAP and the conditions that find their way to the EAP. Be mindful also of how you talk about it. What's your energy when you talk about it? If you're just checking a box, monotone, rolling your eyes. Hey guys, before we start today, I got to talk about our EAP again. Here's the phone number. Here's the website. You have any questions? Okay, great. Here's today's real agenda. You're wasting your time. And like I said earlier, sometimes bad press is bad press. I'd rather they not know about it than start to develop this belief system that EAPs are for those people, not for them. The energy you put in is the energy you're going to get back. Frequency of communication and quality of communication. We're going to spend the rest of our time talking about 6 and 7, and we'll have some time at the end for Q&A if there is any. Address the stigma. As I said earlier, EAPs did evolve out of the 30s, 40s, 50s to help those suffering from alcoholism. That's true. So if you've heard that and you still believe that EAPs are for that, that's a 90-year carryover. They've changed today significantly, but they did start and originate to serve those struggling with alcoholism. Work-life services were added in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Childcare, elder care, financial issues, legal issues. Employers are recognizing, hey, these things are affecting our staff's ability to be effective at work. Maybe we should offer this as a benefit. And so they did. 9/11, again, highlighted the devastating effects that traumatic events can have on a workplace. So crisis response was promoted and implemented by and offered by a true EAP. And then COVID showed us the effects of well-being and mental health, anxiety, depression, isolation, and how that can affect performance. And so the term well-being really hit the mainstream and is now again synonymous with EAPs. But stress management was added, mind, body, meditation, yoga, nutritional counseling, financial coaching, etc. Contrary to popular opinion, the majority of individuals accessing an EAP in 2021 and 2022, I'm guessing it's going to be similar. About 2/3 are accessing it for stress issues. 1/3 are for behavioral health, mental health. 3% for substance abuse. That defies the stereotype, the carryover from many, many years ago that EAPs are for drug users, for alcoholics. Yes, people struggling with addiction can access an EAP. Of course they can. So can so many other people for a variety of different reasons. 2/3, again, I'm going to say it again, 2/3, according to the most recent polling, of people accessing an EAP for counseling was due to stress in general, personal, work, and relationship stress. Now, this 3-pound organ that you see on the screen, I got it behind me too here. This 3-pound organ consumes 20% of your daily caloric intake, 20% of your calories. It's a supercomputer. It's super powerful. Now, each area of the brain is responsible for doing something. This area of the brain here, cerebellum, that's red on your screen. This is gross motor movement, spatial navigation, balancing. When you defect this area of the brain, a person can become unbalanced. They can feel a little tipsy, like they're standing on a boat. It could be an early indication of MS or other autoimmune conditions affecting the brain. If you damage this part of the brain, yellow here, it's green on the screen, that's your occipital lobe. It controls vision, visual perceptive processes. If you affect that, you can lose your vision. It can become distorted. You can't see at night. It affects your ability to see. Well, the frontal lobe, this is our CEO. This is our president. This is where our executive functions occur. Planning, thinking, problem solving, mood, impulse control, memory. It's very sensitive to stress. And so if we affect this area of the brain through repeated chronic stressors, we can become forgetful. We can't think as clearly. Our personality can shift. We don't sleep as well. Our mood's all over the place. It makes a lot of sense, right? When you understand what the brain actually does. And unfortunately, a lot of people in America, a lot of workers are experiencing elevated levels of stress. 62%, according to a 2022 ComPsych report. ComPsych is the largest provider of EAP services in the US. Workplace Options is the largest provider globally. 62%, extreme fatigue, feeling out of control. 33%, a third, said constant but manageable stress levels. That's still not great. I mean, it's good that they're managing them, but constant, my goodness. And then only 5% have low. And the number one reason, workload. Number two, people issues. 73%. I have too much work to do and not enough time to do it. And I'm having interpersonal conflict, either with people on my team or those and other teams that I have to work with. So you have to ask yourself as well, as a leader, how are you contributing to the stress of your employees? How much work are you giving them? Are they able to get it done and still have some type of balance? Are there people issues in your workplace that you're perpetuating? Are you hopefully not gossiping, making it worse by bad-mouthing others behind their back? And are you getting involved and actively trying to resolve these interpersonal issues? I give some time off from work, a day off here and there, letting them skip a meeting. That's helpful and it's appreciated. Absolutely. But for some people, they're saying to me behind closed doors, in my coaching and my consultations, that it's just not enough. Sometimes you have to lighten the workload. Acute stress is good. I don't want to talk badly about stress for too long because it's actually necessary. Stress is good. Stress is why we're here today. Some level of stress is healthy. It can help focus us and help us overcome challenges and break through obstacles and barriers. But when it's chronic, it's elevated, and it's intense, it can be very, very destructive. A lot of different stress hormones flood the body when we experience a stressor. Adrenaline, epinephrine, that's one. Cortisol is another. Cortisol, when it stays sustained in the body and in the brain for days, weeks, months, years, actually changes the way the brain functions. If you change the anatomy, the structure of parts of the brain, you change the way that it works. You change the way that it functions. Our brains are neuroplastic, so it's designed to learn. All right. If you go home and you start studying French, your brain will literally change its structure, etch new pathways, and it will grow. It's crazy. Changes aren't necessarily bad, but these changes can be really, really bad because it changes areas of the brain like the frontal lobe and deep within the limbic system that control motivation. And so what happens is the individual, because they can't get rid of the stressor, they start to prioritize symptom relief and focus on just feeling better. Before I talk about more symptoms, I want to show you some images of a diseased heart and a diseased brain. What you're seeing here is an image of a healthy heart. The red is healthy blood flow. This is a good functioning heart. And on the right side is a diseased heart. Disease basically breaks down to the Latin prefix dis means without or the opposite of. So dislike, you are without like. Disorder is without order. Ease is Old French, which means loosely means comfort. Something that's easy, it's comfortable. So the word disease means without comfort. And patient comes from the Latin word patiens, which means one who suffers. So patients, people who suffer, have diseases. There's some type of dysfunction. They're without comfort. What you're seeing on the screen on the right is the pathophysiological nature of heart disease. It changes the way the heart functions. What you're seeing here on the screen is also pathophysiological. The left side, healthy brain, functioning well. This is an area of the brain called the striatum. I don't want to get too clinical. I do have a clinical background and I've taught courses on this, but I don't want to drag into the weeds too much, guys. I just want to emphasize key points here about stress and how it affects our brain. This area of the brain is called the striatum. It's a group of subcortical nuclei that are heavily involved in action selection. So think motivation. It's the rudder of our ship. Motivation steers our behavior. It guides our choices. So when we see people behaving, that's a manifestation of choice. And choice is heavily influenced by thought and feeling. So when you affect this area of the brain, you affect the choices, you affect the behavior. Individual on the right, this is an addicted brain. Their choices are very different than the person on the left. You're seeing a depressed brain here on the left and no depression on the right. Depression does exactly that. It depresses the brain. It slows it down. Limited activity can cause an individual to experience sadness, feelings of hopelessness. They might be very emotional and crying. They might be having thoughts of self-harm. They also have a really hard time motivating or deriving pleasure from everyday activities. Person on the right, healthy. What you're seeing here, last image, is a picture of a brain under stress, left side and right. Now, those on the left are dealing with the stress in a very healthy manner. The area in question is called the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. It's the midline between the two hemispheres of the brain, right behind the forehead. And this is thought to govern impulse control and mood regulation. So when you get it really, really, really stressed and you're 2 weeks into your diet, and then somebody hands you a donut, you're going to be far more likely to give in to that impulse because this part of the brain is not going to be functioning as well as it should. The number one predictor for relapse of any behavior, not just addiction, but any behavior, is stress because it can shut down this area of the brain. So on the right side, you have a brain that's dealing with stress is going to be far more likely to give in to impulse. The symptoms of the brain on the right could be physical, emotional, or behavioral. Physically, stress can cause chest pain, a racing heart, high blood pressure, stomach changes, certainly sleep. I know for me, when I start sleeping and stop sleeping well, that's a sign that I'm getting a little bit out of balance. I need to draw the reins in and look at my workload and look at some other things that I'm engaging in. Autoimmunity can occur. Stress can affect our immune system. We're more likely to get sick and develop autoimmune conditions, food sensitivities, and the list goes on. Stress can also lead to emotional and mental symptoms, anxiety, depression, panic attacks, anhedonia or feeling numb, trouble motivating. And behaviorally, drinking too much alcohol, cigarettes, gambling. As a person who's seen thousands of clients in my career struggling with addiction and co-occurring issues, mental health conditions, my experience has showed me that addiction, yes, it is a primary chronic condition. And the ASAM, American Society of Addiction Medicine, says addiction is a primary chronic condition involving brain reward, motivation, memory, and related circuitry. I agree. But for the person misusing alcohol, it's not a primary condition. It's a secondary condition. It's a means of coping with the unresolved chronic stress that leads to addiction, which can be a standalone issue. Now you've got addiction and you've got mental health and you've got physical issues. For the person struggling, the addiction, the substance use is the solution to the problem. To people looking on the outside in, the substance is the problem. There's a disconnect between how the person views the alcohol and how society views the alcohol. For them, they can't deal with the actual stress itself, so they deal with the symptom of it by consuming alcohol or other drugs that give them temporary alleviation from discomfort. Now, unfortunately, more people are accessing treatment for mental illness than they ever have before. And I think, again, the pandemic was helpful in reducing stigma and encouraging people to get help. Unfortunately, it's still only 47.2%. That's really, really low. It needs to be a lot higher than that. Now go to the chat. What do you all think is true for substance addiction? Do you think that it's the same? So 36.1 million people in the US needed treatment for a chemical addiction. Do you think it's about 47% that get help? Do you think it's lower? Do you think it's 10%, 20%? Do you think more people with addiction get help than mental illness? What do you think? Please put your answer in the chat. Sarah says 40, Tracy says lower. Megan, significantly lower. Lyra, less. Lower. It is significantly lower, everybody. It's about 8%, which is significantly lower. Why? Stay in the chat. Why don't people who are stressed out, who are struggling with depression, who are struggling with anxiety, substance use, these are all very treatable conditions. So why aren't people getting help? What are some reasons? What are your thoughts? Don't have enough time? Yeah, that's a serious problem. Yeah, if you don't, as the saying goes, if you don't have time to take care of your health issues today, you'll be forced to take care of them tomorrow when it breaks and you have to get help for yourself. If you don't take care of the rattling in your car today, you're going to be forced to take care of it when it eventually breaks. You know, the mind and the body are the same. Ideally, we want to focus a little bit on prevention, right? Where to really start? Embarrassed, expensive, think it's a normal life, stigma. don't know how to get help, admitting a weakness, time, money, shame. Yeah, all these are wonderful answers. Asking for help is a sign of weakness. Maybe people are minimizing, things aren't that bad. I've had patients say, I've got too many people depending on me. I want to get help, but we're a single income family. I can't take 6 weeks off from work. We're barely making ends meet right now as it is. I've got school coming up. My kids need new clothes. They need school supplies. I just can't do it, at least not right now. I can't let them down. I understand. Can't afford it. Not sure where to get help. But number one, as I said earlier, ashamed or embarrassed if people found out. Privacy concerns. This has to do with the stigma. Now, I've showed these images many times before. I'm going to show them again. It's perfectly natural and fine for us to have gym memberships, maybe at home. You walk into any gym across the United States, you see 2 people exercising on a treadmill, a guy's on some free weights, you have a girl doing some pull-ups, you have other people doing sit-ups, work on the elliptical. Perfectly normal. That's what you expect. That's why you're there. Physical fitness is perfectly fine. If you want to optimize your physical health, you are free to do so without any stigma, any negative judgment. But not on your mind. Mental fitness is not okay. If you're dealing with stress, you're dealing with anxiety, you're dealing with addiction, you got to just toughen it up. You got to gut up, suck it up, and just push through. You're going to be fine. Mind over matter. It'll stop hurting when the pain goes away. My dad used to tell me that growing up. I thought it was funny. Now it's kind of sad. It's kind of depressing. It's a carryover from that baby boom generation that we're not allowed to optimize our mental fitness. Of course we are, and of course we should. So we've got to be making sure that as leaders, we're addressing the stigma of mental illness, of addiction, of just stress in general, by talking about it, by communicating often about our program, by using our program, by being empathic and compassionate when we talk about our program, by advertising our program, and of course, by training our leaders. Now, if you're not comfortable addressing the stigma, that's okay. Bring in a trained professional to do it. Your EAP should be offering you free services, at least an orientation where they talk about it. Let the professionals do it if you don't want to do it. Just be mindful how you talk about addiction and how you talk about mental health, how you talk about stress, because it could influence a person to either get help or not get help. And then finally, lead by example. I want to go over a quick case scenario with you guys. I see the time and I think we'll be good. May not have a whole lot of time for Q&A, true to type here. But what are your thoughts on this? Let's go through this together. You and a friend are on break, drinking coffee, chit-chatting about life and work. After a few minutes, your friend tells you that they've been under an enormous amount of pressure and stress lately with work and with family obligations. You sense the stress in their voice, and so you just listen. They eventually reveal a nightly habit of 8 to 12 alcoholic beverages. They're not sleeping well. They feel depressed, and they openly comment, "Sometimes I wish I would just fall asleep and not wake up." After sharing all of this with you for about 15 minutes, they ask for your advice. Now, you don't have to answer this, but would you negatively judge and berate them? Would you condemn them? Pull out a long ruler and start whipping them? No, of course you wouldn't. There would be empathy in your voice, certainly sympathy in your voice. What would you say to them? And please go to the chat for this. What are some things you might say to this particular friend of yours who just shared with you they are really, really struggling in life and they're feeling lost? They don't know what to do. Now, you absolutely want to make sure that there's no active suicidal plan or intention or no recent attempts, because that's an emergency services call, right? You want to get professionals involved immediately, especially if there's an active plan with intent. But if it's just passive thoughts, they're feeling hopeless, they're not sure what to do, you talk, you listen, you give advice. Sarah says, offer to call the EAP with them. Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful response. You really need to talk with someone. Leanne, 100%. And as part of that, you as a leader want to make sure you know what resources are available. So you don't have to go researching on Google right then and there. You have it within your fingertips. It's in your email. The flyer's in your desk drawer, and you can give it to them immediately. These are health concerns. Encourage them to get help. Absolutely, Tracy. Express your empathy, concern. Ask if you can help them find options. Beautiful. You need to see a professional. I agree, Cliff. Yeah, absolutely. So on that particular case scenario, let's talk about this case here. I know some people don't like rats, but I'm going to talk about them. They do in many ways behave like humans in many, many ways. Tracy says, normalize the emotions. Then what do you think you need right now? Yeah, beautiful, Tracy. I completely agree with you on that one. You don't want to judge them. You don't want to make them feel like they're wrong for feeling the way that they do. And then where are you at and where do you want to be, and then help them kind of close that gap. So this particular study in 2011 was trying to understand if rats exhibited pro-social behavior. There's a lot of studies that suggested that they do. Pro-social meaning there's empathy. They're able to connect at a deeper level with fellow rats and show kindness, show concern. So they took 30 pairs of rats, they caged them together. One rat was in a really large plexiglass cage. And inside that cage, you can see here was a small little cylindrical plexiglass tube, which another rat was placed in. Now, at the end of that tube was a little trap door that the other rat, who was not confined, could problem solve and could lift and get that rat out of there. So they could free them from the cage, okay? And that's exactly what happened. So the smaller rat was placed in the tube. It vocalized its distress. They don't like to be trapped any more than humans do. And the other rat immediately got to work trying to free them. And they did. Every single rat freed the trapped rat. So the researchers thought, well, maybe the rat's not pro-social. Maybe they're actually selfish. Maybe they want to playmate. So let's put some of their favorite treats in there, which are chocolate chips. Let's put chips in there and then cage the rat and see what they do. Every single one of the rats, male and female, immediately got to work to free the trapped rat. What's interesting is what happened after that. All the female rats shared the chocolate chips with their new friend. The male rats were a little more selfish and kind of guarded the chocolate chips. They didn't want to share, but they did free the rat. This led the researchers to conclude that helping fellow rats in distress, it's in their biology. It's in ours as well. It's in ours as well to experience empathy. And sympathy, empathy are sometimes thought to be the same thing. They're different. Sympathy is a conscious understanding of difficulty. Empathy is actually experiencing it like the other person. So Alfred Adler, prominent psychologist and founder of individual psychology, said empathy is seeing with the eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another, feeling what that person might be experiencing. It's really easy for us to see somebody else in distress and reach out and give good advice and treat them like a good friend, to have compassion, but we're not always as kind to ourselves. And what I'm talking about here is this idea of self-compassion. It's treating ourselves like we would a good friend. It's giving ourselves the same level of concern and support that we would a good friend. So leading by example means that you demonstrate self-compassion, that you are not immune or impervious to the effects of stress, that you can be affected by it, and that you deserve to get well. Leading by example means one more thing, and then I'll close. I talked about this earlier with Tracy on the podcast. I'll talk about it again here. Now, the Yerkes-Dodson stress performance curve was coined by two psychologists who developed it at the turn of the 20th century, about 100 years ago. And this is an empirical relationship between stress and performance. There's this optimal zone where we experience the right amount of stress to feel energized, focused, and get our job done. You'll hear people say, I feel like I'm in the zone. That's just the right amount of stress. If you're on the left side of this, you're having no stress. If you're on the right side, too much stress. And if you live here for too long, it can be very, very damaging to mind, body, and relationships. So I'm going to close with this last slide by sharing a quick story of myself. It was 2017. I was just promoted to management and I was taking on more work. And I firmly believe that we do grow at the edge or outside of our comfort zone, but we can't live there for too long. If we go too far or stretch too much, we can break. And so I was saying yes to everything. I was doing corporate trainings, clinical trainings. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't eating well. There's no balance in my life while I'm trying to be a good father and a good husband. And I got sick. I got really, really sick. I developed an autoimmune condition that I'm still struggling with today. Granted, I'm functioning and I'm so grateful for that. But there was a period of time in 2018, 2019 where I had to cancel engagements. I just couldn't do it. So I walk into this functional doctor's office and I'm sitting there and I look up and I see on the television screen the words that you see on the screen here. Food is the most overutilized anti-anxiety medication, and exercise is the most underutilized antidepressant medication. I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating nutritious foods, and I certainly wasn't exercising. And this hit me so hard. I am in the helping profession. I am a counselor, I am a trained clinician, and I am not doing for myself what I am telling others to do for their self. Talk about a hypocrite, right? It hit me so hard, and it was that moment that I began to really change things and start to actually practice what I preach. And I did continue to get help for myself, and I did eventually get better. But leading by example means not just extending yourself an olive branch and practicing self-compassion. It's recognizing the balance that you have right now in your life. Are you on the path to burnout? Is your current path sustainable? Are you taking on too much? What are you sacrificing at work, at home, because you're taking on too much? It's okay to say no. No is a complete sentence, believe it or not. So to recap, advertise services, make them dynamic, change it up, rotate the flyers, make sure you put them in your office next to things that are important to you. Make sure your team knows that the EAP is confidential. Train your leaders on how to benefit from the EAP and how to recognize those in distress. Use the services, you're more likely to promote them. Communicate frequently and communicate with empathy. Address the stigma, talk about stress and addiction and mental illness openly. And then lead by example. Practice self-compassion. Practice work-life balance. Show people the behavior you wish to see in them. Be a good model. And with that, Jamie, I will hand it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. So I appreciate everybody's time. I know we're right at the top of our actually minute over. If you would please do the survey that is going to be, you can scan this here really quick on your phone. I think we're going to try to stick the link in the chat, but it'll go away very quickly. Actually, it's in the chat right now. So if you can find that forms link, we really appreciate the feedback. As a reminder, certificates will be emailed out to you by next Wednesday. So that way you can have your continuing ed credits. We look forward to keep bringing you these educational webinars. We're working on our Q1 plans for that right now. I do want to just say thank you again to Ryan, always being such a great trainer for us, giving us really powerful solutions, lots of great education pieces and things like that. So if you have any questions, Ryan's got his information up there. If you guys want information on our EAP, or you want to talk specifically about even feedback from this webinar or how you can help, we can help you with your current EAP, please feel free to book a consultation appointment with us. You can see that QR code for that on the screen today. And we very much appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of the season, rest of the year, and we'll see you in Q1. Thanks so much.